Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I am here with a card project for Kat Scrappiness video hop and giveaway. I will tell you all about that a little later in the video. I am using a couple of new products, a couple of old products, but really we're going to talk about a lot of techniques today. So I have this brand new stencil. It's called the Jack-o'-lantern Faces stencil, and I am laying that down on my orange cardstock, and it's like a slightly shimmery cardstock. I want to make sure that my ink is going to dry on my cardstock, and since it's shimmery, I decided to heat emboss this. So that's why I grabbed my pigment ink. I also went over this with my anti-static powder tool before I started stenciling, and that's going to help out too. I also find that when I use a regular sticky mat, sometimes the sticky from the mat will pick up embossing powder as well, and then I have a mess all over the place. So I am using my Waffle Flower grip mat. You guys, they've been sold out all over the place, but Kat Scrappiness has them in stock. This is the, I think it's 5.5 by 8.5. It's the one that fits in your Misty, but actually the 6x6 would work even better since these are 6x6 stencils. So now that I have heat embossed the clear embossing powder, I'm going to lay my stencil right back over the top, and I'm going to bring in some solar paste. This is the yellow solar paste, and if I had gone straight in onto my orange cardstock, it would barely show up, but I want this to look like it's kind of shining. So again, this is called Golden Hour, and I am just going to put that all the way through the stencil. I'm just scraping a really thin layer on top of that black embossing powder, and it is going to look absolutely magical. If you don't have solar paste, that's okay. You could have done this whole thing with gold embossing powder, or there's like a bright yellow lunar paste. I think it's called Shooting Star. That would look really brilliant on here. Or you could do like the black heat embossing and then offset before you put the Shooting Star on top, right? We're just looking at different ways that we can step up a stencil because stencils are really, really affordable. This is the new Spiderweb stencil. I love this one too. And we're going to make a shaker card, by the way. I am just trying to create a little extra interest on the different layers of my shaker card. So I know I'm going to cut out of the middle of this panel using the double stitched oval. So that's the die that I keep sort of bringing over. And I'm cutting that oval out of the middle of this panel. So I just kind of went around the edges and then lighter towards the middle. And then I'm taking some of the white silver pearl powder. This came out, I think, over the summer, and I'm going to add a little bit of water and I'm going to flick onto this. I just want to add a little bit of shimmer, a little extra texture onto my stencil, but I don't want it to be where the sort of web lines are. So I'm flicking it while the stencil is still on there, and then I will peel that off. And that Waffle Flower grip mat is going to clean up beautifully. Just a little bit of water and it'll be good to go. So off camera, I cut down this panel. You can see there's some space at the top and the bottom that didn't stencil, right? It's a 6x6, and so you need a little bit of solid stencil around it to hold everything together. So mine ended up at 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, just because I wanted as much of that web left as possible, but you could certainly do 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then instead of trying to measure a black mat, I am just laying this onto a larger piece of black cardstock with the tiniest, thinnest little mat around it. And then I will trim off the excess on each of the two overhanging sides until they match. And I just love that I've kept as much of my stenciling as possible. I've given myself a little mat to make everything pop. I thought I was going to use that pinky purple, but in the end, I wanted the more classic, like deep, rich purple. So I am going to use that double stitch rectangle and cut it right out of the middle of my stenciled spiderweb panel, and it cut beautifully through both layers of cardstock. Those are 100-pound layers of cardstock. Not a problem. Then I'm taking that same oval, and you could probably skip this step, but I'll explain why I did it. I'm tracing around the outside, and then I'm going to trim those jack-o'-lantern faces. I didn't do a great job of stenciling all the way to the edges of that panel, and it's just barely big enough. Okay, it's me being stingy and conserving my shiny orange cardstock. And so if I had just used a larger panel, I would have left it as a rectangle and it would have been a little bit easier later on. But I wanted to trim off the bits of the jack-o'-lantern faces that weren't stenciled real well. And so that's how I went around that. Then I'm coming in just with some distress ink around the edges. I did test it off camera to make sure it would dry, and turns out it will dry on my shiny cardstock, which is awesome. And that just brings a little more interest, and we'll draw our eye toward the middle. And then I'm going to add some acetate to the back of my spiderweb panel. I could have measured this, but I just don't. I just lay the acetate onto the shaker panel, and then I trim off the extra. These are old transparency sheets that I have because I'm a teacher and I've been teaching since we used transparency sheets. But here we are anyway. And then I'm going to use some black foam tape and just go right around the edges of that oval. I want to make sure you can see all my shaker bits all the time. And so I don't make a box out of my foam tape. I do wrap it around the outside. So I just take the release paper off of both sides and it will bend and curve. And I just want to make sure that if I use more than one piece, they are touching so that none of my goodies fall out. Then I will go ahead and add that same foam tape around the rest of it before I add my little bits to the inside. I'm using two different mixes here. I have the RIP Tombstones and the black confetti. These are both clay pieces, and I love the way that clay pieces shake. They're just a little bit heavier, and so I find that they move better. And Kat Scrappiness has a phenomenal selection of clay confetti, and her prices are amazing. You guys, if you aren't checking out her shop, you need to check out her shop. Okay, so while I'm putting the rest of this together, I do need to tell you about the hop. This is celebrating the fall release for Kat Scrappiness, and there are so many amazing things in this release, okay? It is a hashtag driven hop. So if you click on the hashtag in the title of my video, it should bring up all of the other videos available. But I will also list each of the videos individually in the description box below. Okay, this is me adding little patches in places where I was worried that if I flipped this over, things were gonna fall out of my shaker. Again, if you hadn't trimmed down the orange panel like I did, you wouldn't need to do that. But that's my hack. It's just printer paper where I'm covering up a couple little places where I was worried it didn't go far enough to the outside edge. Okay, also in this hop, there is a giveaway. There's a $25 gift card that you can win, which buys you a lot of product at Kat Scrappiness. All you have to do is sign up for the Kat Scrappiness newsletter, and then there's a raffle copter form to fill out to be entered to win. I am adding 2 older Halloween sets into our shaker mix here. I have the Kat Scrappiness Crafters Essential Halloween. That's the Tombstones. It's an awesome set. It also has a moon and a pumpkin and a spooky tree. It also has those bats that we're going to use and a fence. And then I have the spooky boo word die that I love so, so much. I've used this guy a couple times this season already. I am adding a black die cut behind my matte gold, and it's slightly to the bottom and to the right. So it's like a little drop shadow, and it will help that word stand out a little more on top of my shaker window. And then for my tombstones, I did a little ink blending over the top. They have some great etched detail on them. And so I just brought in my little Kat Scrappiness mini blending brushes to add a little color over the top and make that, like the RIP and little cracks in the tombstones, stand out even more. Okay, these bats. The one on the top right, I have put that guy upside down on at least 3 cards because I wasn't paying attention. You want to look for like the bat ears. You want the bat ears pointing up. You see them? And once you know to look for that, you're like, oh, he does go this direction. But I tell you what, I'm not sure anybody noticed when I put him on there upside down. I am using the end of my Kat Scrappiness embellishment tool to add a little bit of glue on this bat with his wings spread. I just wanted to make sure I didn't get too much because I didn't want the glue to ooze out the sides. And so the end of my little pickup tool is really, really helpful for that. I have more room on the boo, so I am not worried about going straight from my glue bottle onto the die cut. It looks like a lot of glue, but I'm pressing the tip of my glue bottle to the die cut. And so it's just the thinnest little layer, and I don't worry about it. And this glue sticks really, really well to acetate. So that works pretty well for cards like this. that finishes up our card. We have this great shaker Halloween goodness. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please give this a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. Welcome. It's great to have you. Be sure to hop along by clicking on that hashtag, and I will see you next time.